Hi everyone, this is Miri again. I'm here to do the test I said I was going to do the other day. The new Holo Taco protective peel versus the significantly cheaper, but possibly less accurate, Mehron liquid latex, which is the standard that makeup artists use. So let's start. I've got two polishes here to do a gradient with. They're two of my favorite polishes to do gradients. Mostly because they're cheap dollar store, so wasting them doesn't bother me, but they're still really pretty. And I've got my sponge and my tools. So let's start first with how easy they are to apply. And yes, I'm doing it over another manicure. I was going to take this off later anyway, and it's already got the peel off base, and I wanted to do a different video at some point soon. So I'm just going to do it over a few of my fingernails, and then I can peel it off when I'm done with the peel off base, the peely base from Nailogical. Okay, so this is her protective peel. So let's see how well this goes on. And that's going on pretty nicely. It's very thin. It feels almost watery to me. But that might turn out to be a useful thing. We'll see. So that's one finger with the protective peel. And I always go down and around the tip of the finger because I sometimes get a mess there also. And I got a little bit where I don't want it on the edge of the nail. So I'm going to go in with this and pull that back out and wipe it off on my paper. And this, what I film on, is just a basic black craft paper that I buy in a big roll, so it's super cheap, and so I don't care if I have to throw it out. And since I'm doing a sponge thing, I'm gonna put more of this on further around. So that's that, and that actually went on very nicely and very easily. Sorry about that. My husband needed to talk to me for a minute. So that's this. It goes on well. It dries pretty quickly. I mean, it's not dry yet, but it'll get there. And that noise in the background is my dishwasher emptying. So now I'm going to go in with this. Now this has a much bigger brush, and the material is a bit more, I'd almost call it goopy. It's a lot, not nearly as thin and watery texture as the protective peel. But it goes on nicely. And I actually find this brush also very easy to control, and it puts on more at a time, which is very helpful. The bristles are relatively stiff. Now this is designed for makeup artists who do special effects to build up makeup looks. And I just got a tiny bit of this one on my nail now, but again, I can just pull off that extra little bit and it's back off my nail. So yeah, this is designed for makeup artists to be able to build prosthetics on people's faces and to make fake wounds and all kinds of things like that. And I just got a little more on the nail, so it's maybe a tiny bit harder to apply, but I find it pretty much just as easy. I've just got a couple spots to get it back off the nail. One right there, just happened. There we go. And one over here. And this one also dries very quickly, as you can see by the fact that I was just going to move that off my nail and it actually stretched instead of just pulling clear as a liquid. This one's seems to be dry now, and that one's dry. So I'm just going to do the two nails just to test the difference between these. I need this one. This one actually takes a little longer to dry, but that's partially because it goes on thicker. I just had to grab my tweezers for when it's time to pull it back off. So that was the, so remember the index finger is protective peel, the middle finger is the Mehron liquid latex for makeup artists. And now I'm going to set up my sponge gradient. And I mean, these are dollar store polishes, but they're really pretty. They're still a cruelty-free. That's LA Colors. They're cruelty-free. They're, I forget how many free, but like 8 or 9 or 7 or something like that. They're reasonably healthy and safe. And in fact, this color specifically is the only one I know of that has this. It's Rhody, and it's a dollar store polish, and it actually has little tiny hollow flecks in it, which I bet you can see right now as I turn this, because I can see them, so I'm hoping you can see them also, which is actually really cool. And it just so happens that these two polishes, the Rhody and this one's called Punk, almost kind of look like they have almost the same inclusion colors, but just a different color base, which means, and they're both very teal, but this one just is a lot more light, a lot more white, and this one's more colored. So they make a really nice, and I'm actually reusing a sponge. I used it before, and then I just cut off the edge that was dried up with polish. So I'm putting lots of this on to get it into the sponge. Although another thing I've done is you can use, I mean, I don't care because this is dollar store polish, but if you've got a polish you just want to use up that you don't really like anymore, you can actually use that so the sponge can mostly absorb the crappy polish, and then you can put the polish you want to use if you don't want to waste it on top of that. And that means that, I mean, it works best if you're using it works best with a clear or very light colored polish, unless you're doing your gradient with something very dark, because you don't want something that's going to change the colors of what you're doing. But it works really nicely. So there's that. And I'm going to go back in with a little more of the dark color. Just to make sure we've got enough of everything. There we go. So we have the two colors kind of gradiented together in the middle. I'll just blend that up a bit better so that they'll but I've discovered that one of the easiest ways to make a gradient blend well is, instead of worrying about blending it on here, is to shift it not more than a couple millimeters back and up and down on the nail, or back and forth in the direction of the gradient. It's like you start with dabbing it and then you shift it slightly in different directions, and that makes your gradient line make more sense. So that's that nail. And one thing about this, I think I got a little too much of the dark color on, so let's add a lot more of this one. These might actually be starting to run low. I hope they still sell them. I don't know. I'll have to go to the dollar store again and find out. So I'm just going to add a little more with just the light color redone. That's a bit better. Still not great, but so that's one of the weird things about gradienting with these specific ones. They're what they call textured metal finish, which means that the surface is not smooth. It's very rough. It's, you know, and sometimes they gradient kind of weirdly, and sometimes they do it beautifully. It's very strange. But we're doing this mostly to test the liquid latex products, so I'm not too worried about whether it's a perfect job or not in terms of the polish. So I just added the dark. Now I'm going to add more of the light. I think I put too much of the dark, but that's okay. I'll just put a bit more of the light, use the light to do the blending. So now on the next finger, I'll go ahead I'm doing it the gradient the same direction. I do sometimes, if I'm doing my whole hand with a sponge gradient, I'll actually take one finger and flip the gradient the other direction on purpose. I think it looks really cool. So now let's put this on the other finger. And there we go, another sponge gradient. Now, so we have the polishes on. We've sponged everything on, so now it's time for the test. So I have this pair of, it's actually jewelry making tweezers, which is weird. I mean, they're for picking up little beads and stuff, but they work for this. So I'm going to go ahead and find an edge. And this is the Makeup Artist Liquid Latex. And it's peeling off just fine. It looks like there might have been a little glitter transfer, and there's a spot there that I missed with the liquid latex itself. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe that bit out. And then this one I did with protective peel from from Holo Taco by Simply Nailogical. And I'm having a harder time finding an edge on this one. That's, I think, one of the advantages of the slightly more goopy formula of the Makeup Artist latex, because this doesn't have as much of a thick edge, so I'm really having to fight to get it started. But I'll get there. There, getting there. There we go. I'm actually having a really interesting issue with this because it's being so hard for me to peel off because I put it on so thinly because of how thin it was in the bottle. It actually, in the pulling off process, bumped some of the polish on the nail, and I just had to push it back into place. Now, the polish isn't dry yet, so it's not a big deal, but I think I actually prefer the formula of this simply because it's thicker and easier to work with. I think that's actually an advantage in doing nail polish, is you want something that will peel off and that will go on as a thicker coat and therefore peel off more easily. Because that, not only did I have trouble peeling it off, but in a couple spots where I did peel it off, where I know there was protective peel, it still ended up. And here I've got this bit stuck here under the nail that doesn't want to come off. So I think there's something to be said for either a thicker formula or for doing multiple coats. So her product is fine, it works, but I actually think that it's better. And yeah, in that process of getting it off, I got nail polish on my fingers on the other hand, whereas with the first one, there's a little tiny bit of transfer up top where I first started peeling it, but it didn't affect the nail, it didn't change anything, it didn't bump anything. The only issue I have is that I've got a couple spots where, because it's just about impossible to get the liquid latex into that little corner there, I have some polish on my skin, which is, you know, that's what happens when you do a gradient. So that's my opinion. Hers is good. I love the brush. I really, really love the brush. I think it's a little too liquidy. I think it goes on a little too thin. As I keep using it, I'm going to be making much thicker coats. But what I might end up actually doing is saving this and using this brush to apply this, because the brush felt like I had a little more control, even though this brush is pretty good also. So I think they're both great. They both work. I personally will mostly be buying this one because the liquid latex, the Makeup Artist liquid latex, because it's cheaper and it does the job just as well. And also, just as a personal thing, I kind of hate pink. Haven't been a fan of it since I was a kid. And especially that kind of baby pink that all of these are. And I just wish they wouldn't color them all pink, because then I have to look at pink while I'm doing my nails with my lovely blues and greens and purples and blacks and all of those colors. I like the cool colors. So I wish this actually went on clear. And this particular one that I bought, this is the clear, so when it dries it's clear, but they make it in other colors if you want to be able to see for sure where it is. They make it in a white, they make it in a couple different skin tones. I don't know if they make black, but it's available in all colors. Well, it's available in several colors, and I found, mostly because of how thick it goes on and the fact that you actually have something you can grab when it's time to peel it off, I found it a little easier to work with. So that's my opinion. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe, please like the video, and I will hopefully and come back, see another video, and we will see you on the next one.